Thank you, Vijay Chand, for joining this induction program of Universal Business School with the title of the three deadly ten no the deadly sins, the three deadly sins of oratory. This is a must know, guys. This is what will change your future. Vijay is one of the most prolific speakers I know in Indian industry today, and he can get he can have thousands of people listening to him, and they keep asking for more. So Vijay is the country director of Taxsutra. He's a seasoned senior executive with over 18 years of experience in sales, marketing, leadership in financial information and technology sectors. In his most recent role at Thomson Reuters, Vijay was head of strategic marketing in India. And I've had the privilege of working with him. So he's an exceptional professional. He was responsible for building and executing the enterprise marketing function at Thomson Reuters for all their four verticals, namely financial services, risk, tax, and legal. So these are all very, very different verticals, and to have different marketing strategies and get them together, that's a huge challenge. In addition to his stellar record of performance in his functional roles, both within India and he's worked outside India in several parts of the world across Asia Pacific, Vijay is passionate about core communication and is a certified trainer. Vijay is a regular speaker on brand and customer experience and is a master at storytelling. He lives with his wife and two children, having graduated from Narsimonji College of Commerce. He's also very passionate about future of food and cricket. So I hand you over to you, one of the best speakers you've ever heard, and take it away, Vijay.
Thank you, Tarun. I think feels old when I hear so many things about myself, and it has been an absolute privilege, Tarun, to have worked for you while at Reuters, and I think you're one of the few people who've made a big impact in my life as well. So, folks, before we get started, let's do a quick lesson of humility. Wherever you are in your homes right now, on your desks, I want you to go and grab a sheet of paper. This can be an A4 size paper that you use to print something. This can be a piece of paper you could tear off from a notebook, just a sheet of paper. I'm going to give you exactly 60 seconds to find yourself a sheet of paper. And on the chat box, I want quick thumbs up to see how many of you already have it with you so that we can get started, right? The first lesson of humility, I want you guys to go find yourself a piece of paper, a A4 size piece of paper, tear something from a notebook, whatever you can get your hands on. Okay, lovely. Super, great. For all those of you who found this piece of paper, now this is a very, very important lesson of humility. Just open the sheet of paper in front of you fully, and if that is the total content of a meeting or a conversation that you're going to have with anybody, let's say, for example, today is the 13th of May. It's about 10 minutes past 4 p.m. Tomorrow on the 14th of May at 10 a.m. you have a meeting with someone. You're going to be meeting Tarun, for example. You're going to be meeting a professor, somebody in your university. You're going to have a conversation with a prospective employer who's going to give you, let's say, an internship assignment. Yeah. Now, this sheet of paper that you have with you, let's say that this sheet of paper represents the total content of the conversation that you are going to have with this person tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Are you all with me? On the chat room, thumbs up again, please. Are you all with me now? Super, great. So this piece of paper represents the total content of a conversation that you are going to have with someone tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Now, why do I call this the lesson of humility? And you're going to get to this in just about a minute. If this piece of paper represents the total content that is going to be a part of a conversation that you're going to have with somebody at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now, I want you to take that piece of paper and fold it into exact half. Just fold it into half. Just fold it into half and give me a thumbs up on the chat room when you've done that. This is what I'm asking you guys to do. The piece of paper, I'm asking you to fold it into half. We are on the lesson of humility. Okay, excellent. Now that you fold it into half, this is exactly what is going to happen to your conversation at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. So you went into this conversation, you went into this meeting, you went into this call at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. started with this much content. This is the piece of paper. This represents the total content that you actually spoke, delivered, engaged with, exchanged. At 11 o'clock, you have to fold this paper into half. This is what the person whom you spoke to, it could have been Tarun, it could have been a friend, it could have been a prospective employer who's possibly going to give you an internship assignment. This is how much the person remembers at 11 o'clock from a conversation you've had at 10 o'clock. Are you guys with me? Thumbs up again on the chat room. Yeah. 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, you have a conversation, you have an engagement with someone. If the piece of paper in your hand represents the total content that you have discussed at 10 o'clock, this is what happens to your conversation at 11 o'clock. Now, this is how much someone remembers you in 60 minutes of you having finished speaking or finished meeting. You with me? Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to fold this piece of paper into one more half. All right, this is about 25% of where you started. Yeah, this is about 25% of where we started. At 6 p.m. tomorrow evening, how many hours would have passed since you would have finished your meeting at 10 o'clock? Let's say you did this meeting at 10 in the morning. At 6 p.m., come on the chat room, how many hours would have passed at 6 p.m.? 8 hours? All right, 8. All right, 8 hours. 8 hours on the same day. Since you had this meeting at 10 o'clock in the morning, this is what the person whom you met, whom you spoke to, whom you thought you delivered your finest interview, whom you thought you delivered your finest project report, your finest pitch for why you should be employed as an intern in the organization. This is what the person remembers. That is 25%. Yeah, 25%. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to fold it once again. And then I want you to fold it once again. Yeah, this represents roughly about 10.5% of the conversation that you had at 10 o'clock in the morning. Thumbs up again on the chat room for those of you who are already at 10% with me. Yeah, good. This is what happens to your conversation at 10 o'clock day after tomorrow morning. Day after tomorrow morning is 24 hours since you started a meeting, not since you finished. Since you started a meeting with someone, you started having a conversation, having a meeting, giving yourself getting yourself in an interview for an internship, presenting a project report to somebody. You started that meeting at 10 o'clock tomorrow. At 10 o'clock day after tomorrow morning, less than 10% of what you have delivered in your conversation, in your project, in your pitch is what the person whom you engaged with and met remembers. Now, why do I call it the lesson of humility? In my experience, in the many years that I've spent in sales and marketing, the one thing that I've seen with a lot of people is that they actually have this very strange expectation that when they go and deliver a presentation, that when they go and deliver a sales pitch, when they go and kind of showcase a product or a service or come for an interview or pitch for an internship assignment, they feel that 2 weeks, 3 weeks after that, people are going to remember them. They feel that people will actually remember every word they spoke, or the lovely beautiful slides they made even after a week or 10 days. And they actually send these mails, very interesting emails to people saying, dear Mr. Anand, we met on the 4th of May. Now Mr. Anand wouldn't even know 4th of May. Oh my God, who was this person? Why is this guy writing to me? Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is pure neuroscience. I'm not making this up. This is actually neuroscience. I'm going to very quickly repeat what I said. When you're starting a meeting at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, and this piece of paper represents the total content of the conversation that you have either over an email or over a phone call or as in an in-person meeting, or let's include the formats of the meeting that we are having right now, which is maybe an online meeting right now. This is the total content of the conversation. Then within an hour, the person whom you've spoken to actually loses 50%. This is what is left behind. At 6 p.m. in the evening, 8 hours after the meeting is over, you're actually left with 25%. That is what is left behind. You fold it twice again, that's what you get. This is what is left behind at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, in less than 24 hours after you've met somebody, spoken to somebody, engaged with somebody. Less than 10% of that conversation actually remains in the room. Now, therefore, as we proceed into discussing the 3 deadly sins in the art of communication and how you can actually have lesser folds in your conversation, the whole idea of spending this 1 hour is how do you make your conversations more memorable? How do you engage with people in such a way that they actually remember you at a point when they are actually taking a decision, even if they are not ready to take a decision at the time when you have actually met them? I'm going to repeat this last part for you to understand this very clearly. Now, what happens very often is that when you actually go and meet someone for an internship assignment, or when you've gone in for a job interview, or when you've gone in to pitch a particular product, now this particular prospect, and I'm calling it a prospect because right now you still don't have a formal engagement with them. This particular prospect, and a prospective employer, a prospective buyer, a prospective internship company, this particular person or institution that you're meeting is also meeting a lot of other people, is also doing a lot of other different things at that moment in time. So it is quite possible that they are not at that moment in a decision making point. So how do you have a conversation? How do you engage with people in such a way that there are minimal folds in the conversation that you have had? Now remember everybody, this scientific neuroscience rule applies to
Yes.
every single person. Everybody who engages in a conversation with somebody, this rule applies to them. Everyone loses 50% of their conversation in an hour. Everybody loses 75% of a conversation in 8 hours, and everyone loses 91% of the conversation in less than 24 hours. Now, how do you engage with people in such a way that they remember you? So, which means that your conversation actually becomes memorable, so that, and listen to me carefully, so that even if the person is not taking a decision at that moment when you have actually engaged or met, they remember you at a point when they are actually taking a decision. Are you with me? Thumbs up on the chat room if you're with me and have understood this clearly. Right, fantastic. Now, the reason why I call this the lesson of humility is because y'all are at that age when y'all will start your professional careers very soon in the next couple of years in various shape and forms. Some of you may have had some short-term, short-term or maybe let's say a couple of years kind of assignments before you all took the plunge into getting back into education and trying to get yourself a management degree. So therefore, at this point in your life, it is very, very important to know that this is what happens to every conversation that you have. Many of you will further take up assignments and make professional careers out of sales and marketing as a function. I've personally been an extremely, extremely proud salesperson all my life. I think it's a very, very difficult function to be in and stay for as many years that many of us have been. And when you get there, please remember this, write it down somewhere. This is the lesson of humility. People do not remember more than 50% of what you speak in less than an hour after you've met them. All right. Now we'll move on to what I call the 3 deadly sins in the art of communication. And before I start speaking about the 3 deadly sins, I just want to let all of you know that this is a very, very small part of a larger 2-day program that I used to conduct on behalf of Thomson Reuters called Power Messaging. Power Messaging as a piece of content is owned by a company called Corporate Visions. They are based in the United States. I was a certified trainer on communication skills, and what I have done is I've really just picked up this really small part of a 2-day program, and I kind of share this with as many people as I can, because the 3 things that you're going to hear from me next are 3 things that you'll probably not find them very, very different or very, very new, just that it will reinforce some thoughts back in your mind, because you will realize that these are some of the things that all of us do in our day-to-day lives. All right, so we're going to move on to what I call the 3 deadly sins in the art of communication. All right, now the first one, and if you want to write this down somewhere, the reason I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, and Tarun knows me very well, is because I can't make one. All my life, I've never been able to make a PowerPoint presentation. If I was going to be standing up in front of you in your college, I would have probably just used a black marker pen and a whiteboard, and this is what I would have written on it. So maybe you all can write it down somewhere. The first deadly sin in the art of communication is too much information. How many of y'all are exposed to PowerPoint presentations already? How many of y'all have either made PowerPoint presentations or have seen PowerPoint presentations in a group? Thumbs up on your chat rooms. All right, looks like everyone plays with PowerPoint except me. So maybe I'm in that particular category of people who do not use PowerPoint too much in my life. But yeah, I mean, as a part of your course, as a part of many engagements with groups of people that you work with, PowerPoint has become an essential tool, and therefore you use PowerPoint to kind of express the thoughts that you want to share with, let's say, a group of people. Now, how many of you have actually seen PowerPoint presentations with 28 slides? Has anybody seen a PowerPoint presentation with 28 slides? Thumbs up on the thumbs up or yes on your chat rooms. Oh my God, that's a lot of you. That's a lot of you who've seen PowerPoint presentations with 28, 29 slides. How many of y'all have actually been in a room where somebody is making a PowerPoint presentation and is actually reading out of the PowerPoint presentation? So, you know, I'm going to repeat this. Have you ever been in a room where somebody actually puts up a slide deck and starts looking back at the board and starts reading from the slides? You have? Oh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah. The first rule of PowerPoint presentation, the number one rule of PowerPoint presentation, slides are to lead you into a conversation. Slides are not to read into. They are to lead you, L-E-A-D. They need to lead you into a conversation. They don't need to help you to read. Never ever make PowerPoint slides with less than 48 font, because no one is reading them except you. And when you read out of your own slides, that's the first principal mistake you make. I'm going back to the point. Too much information. I am sure that many of you have come across plenty of presentations where in the first 10 to 15 minutes, you're either trying to get access to your phone, trying to find a way to close your eyes and still make the rest of the room believe that you're not actually knocking off to sleep. You're actually trying somehow or the other to look at the next WhatsApp message that's actually come to you, or look at the next joke. Thumbs up, yes, on the chat room. Have you been in rooms where in the first 15 minutes of a conversation, you don't really know what to do next? When is this going to get over? Yeah, every time. Wow, somebody actually says this happens every time. Now, why does this happen every time? Back to neuroscience, guys. The human mind is not trained to accept a lot of information together. I'm going to repeat this. The human mind is not interested and cannot accept information thrown at it together. It cannot understand it. It doesn't know what to do with too much information. Yeah, very early up in my career. Now, these are mistakes all of us made, and I used to be really proud of some of these really long, lengthy presentations that I used to make. I still distinctly remember me and a colleague of mine, his name is Vikram Singh. We both used to work with Reuters, and you know, at that time, our customers used to use a software on a desktop that they had to use to access financial information and news. And Vikram and I actually walked into a public sector bank. In those days, you know, public sector bank were like government offices where if you walk into a public sector branch at about 2:30 in the afternoon, you could actually smell every single thing that people have actually eaten for lunch at 1 o'clock. So here we are, roughly about, you know, this is a story of about 10 years ago. Me and Vikram actually walk into a public sector bank, and we are there to actually train a person who's of a DGM category, a deputy general manager of a treasury operation, and both of us are there to train this customer. Now imagine this huge room this person is sitting in. आप लोगों ने कभी वो वाली यू नो टेबल देखी है जिसमें टेबल के ऊपर एक पतली सी ग्लास की शीट होती है, and you know, people tend to put things in between the glass sheet and the table, you know, that they can see. These are very old school tables that you see in a lot of government offices. So many of you have seen such tables, right? Great. Now, you know, me and Vikram walk into this room. There is this huge table. There is this lovely large leather chair this man is sitting on, you know, very typical Indian treasury head, you know, nice round face. And this man is someone whom we are going to train to use our system today. Yeah, we're going to actually show him some of the applications We're going to show him, we're going to help him how to use this. Now, Vikram was my senior. He made me sit on the opposite side on the visitor's chair. He walks around to the side where, let's say, for example, the name of this person is Mr. Verma. Let's say Mr. Verma is sitting on the other side, and he goes to Mr. Verma, takes a little stool and sits next to Mr. Verma, picks up the mouse and starts having a conversation. Now, I want you guys to completely imagine this, right? This is an air-conditioned room, old school. We can almost feel the mutton biryani that Mr. Verma has kind of eaten for lunch at 1 o'clock. We are there at 2 o'clock, and we are going to have a 1-hour conversation with Mr. Verma on the applications of the financial information tool that we have sold to him a month ago. Here's what happens. The junior person, Vijay Chan, sits on the opposite side of the table. Mr. Verma turns around, looks at his big old school computer. How many of you have seen a desktop computer? Have many of you seen desktop computers? Or you all have only seen iPads and laptops? You have seen desktop computers. Great. So, there is this big desktop computer, and Mr. Verma starts looking at his desktop computer. Vikram goes and sits a little ahead of Mr. Verma, picks up the mouse and starts speaking. This conversation starts at 2:05. I'm sitting on the other side. At about 2:14, here's what happens. I hear a big snore in the room. Who has gone to sleep? Has Vikram gone to sleep or Mr. Verma's gone to sleep? On the chat room, can you please answer that question? Has Vikram gone to sleep or Mr. Verma's gone to sleep? Mr. Verma's gone to sleep. So most of you think Mr. Verma's gone to sleep. Well, yes, Mr. Verma's gone to sleep because he's not speaking. But Vikram has continued to speak without turning around and found out what's happening to Mr. Verma. Now, why is Mr. Verma going to sleep? Is it because he's not interested? Is it because the service that we have provided to him is not useful to him? It's not because he's not interested. He gave a confirmed appointment. We landed up at the time when the appointment was given to us. Is he not interested? I think he's interested. That is because that software adds value to his life. Why did he go to sleep? Okay, there's someone who says he had just finished his lunch. Well, I've just finished my lunch, but I'm not getting off to sleep right now. And many of you probably have just finished your lunch as well. The reason why Mr. Verma dozed off to sleep is because his mind could not consume so much information that was being thrown at him. The human mind can consume information in small digestible chunks. Small digestible chunks. What do I mean by small digestible chunks? I mean that when you actually are sharing, presenting, introducing a lot of content, even if that content is something that people whom you're talking to relate with, the information has to be shared in small digestible chunks. Have you seen some presenters who actually stop after every 2 slides and look back at the audience and check with them if they are actually with the presentation and with the presenter? Yes or no on your chat boxes, please. Yeah, you have, right? That is exactly what I mean. The whole concept of too much information is very, very scientific. The human mind cannot accept or digest a lot of information together, which is why information needs to be shared in digestible chunks, and only then people can consume it, understand it, respond to it. Yeah. Now, when people are, so there is a scientific experiment that has been done, and it's there on Google. I can share that information with you. But for the purpose of this conversation, because we have another 30 minutes, 35 minutes in hand, now, scientifically proven, a bunch of people were actually put in an environment where a lot of information continually was thrown at them. There are 7 key behavioral traits that these people actually showcased when they were exposed to a lot of information. Now, many of these first 6 deal with how irritated people got, how uninterested people became, and how disconnected people were with that content. The 7th part of that research is the most important, and this is where I want you to write this down somewhere.
So Vijay, normally what we follow, student put up the question on the chat box and then we pick up the few questions. So let me do that job for you to pick up the few questions.
Sure, sure. So because the chat box just keeps moving very fast, I'm going to still try and read. But yeah, why don't you ask me the questions, Rahul, and let me attempt to answer them. You
Yes,
pick 3 or 4 questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
thank you. So I will start with the question which must be the common for every student before taking up the student question. Vijay, as per you, what is more important? Communication, that means the grammar and everything, or the content?
So, let me answer this like this, that what you communicate is important and how you communicate is equally important. Now,
Okay.
speaking about grammar, for a person like me, I've looked at talent in many different countries. I've worked in the Philippines, I've worked in Australia, and I've had people in so I've actually had people who have reported to me from different countries: Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, China, Hong Kong, South Korea, Japan. Many of these countries that I speak to you about today, English is not their first language. So no
Hmm.
one is actually looking for big words, flowery
Yes.
language, sentences like what Shashi Tharoor brings to the table. No one is looking for that. As long as your communication is simple, it
Yeah.
explains what you want to explain, it is correct in basic grammar, I think that's great. So
Okay.
what you communicate and how you communicate, I think, are two pillars of any piece of communication. The challenge that I find is every single time I read something, I often think people have put it up in a rush job. A lot of people just put something together because they feel it is their birthright to respond to an email which has come to them in the first 10 seconds after it has come to them. People forget that there is a difference between reacting and responding. You need to learn to respond, not react.
Wow. Okay. So the second question is about the individual, that why people compare with the one person to another person when the individual is so much importance.
Yeah. What is the question?
So the question is, when you are saying that your persona, your individual persona is very important, but in this
Yeah.
world, people compare one person to the another person, that you are not like
Yeah.
him or you are not like so and so.
Yeah.
So how to solve that, debate in the mind?
Stop comparing. Just stop comparing. Believe in yourself. That's it.
So
Why do
that's
you
the
want to
question
compare with
to
somebody
student.
else?
We can stop the comparing, the world compare.
Yeah, let the world compare. You stop comparing. The first step is what you can do. There are two things in this. There are two things in life that you can do, right? There are things which
Yeah.
are in your influence and control, and things which are outside your influence and control. Today, if I'm meeting 61 students for one position of internship in my association, I'm going to compare the 61 students one with the other. But who are you to compare?
True.
Why are you comparing?
So that's the important lesson for our students.
Yeah. Next.
Another question, what should be the ideal size of the email in terms of the length of the email?
Well, I've written emails uh, with 2 lines, and I've written emails with 20 and with 200. Now, that's a
Yeah.
difficult question to answer because that really depends on what you're trying to explain to somebody. But in a standard world, my take is that if you have a lot of information to share with somebody, then what I would normally recommend is that please put the context of your communication on your email, put the rest of the details on a Word document, neatly attach it to the email, and say that for additional information which will also be equally useful to you, Mr. Chand, I have attached an annexure that you can look up at your convenience. That, in my view, is a very, very, very good way of sharing a lot of information and still following the rule of too much information. Not sharing
Okay.
too much information by doing a short email, putting things on a Word document, adding it to an annexure, sending it out.
So one question which our these candidates are asking, and I'm sure that our senior student also asked, and I'm sure that even the professional asked, must have asked to you, that how to introduce yourself, how to introduce someone, what are the points which they need to include in the introduction during the interview?
Sure. So I think, to me, when I meet people, I normally do not like people who have lengthy introductions. I like people who come with very, very short introduction. For example, Rahul, let's say if you're coming to me for an internship assignment, I would
Yeah.
expect you to start and stop with the following. Hi Vijay, my name is Rahul. I come from the Universal Business School. I've just graduated and I'm looking for an internship assignment in your company. That's it. Let him start asking the questions after that.
True. Which book will you recommend it for improving communication skills?
Uh, Difficult question again. I am a very, I mean, I have a reasonably large collection of books at home, and there are tons of books that I can kind of talk about. But let me answer this a little more easy for all of you. I think what is not important is which book you should read for communication. What is important is that you should read. One
Yeah.
of the challenges that we face in the times that we live is the number of different platforms on which we have distractions on. So I completely appreciate the amount of time that you need to spend on the social media platforms that we are all engaged in: WhatsApp, Instagram, various other platforms. But at the same time, I think it's very important to read. One of the earlier lessons that I learned when I was in college, this was when I was still at Narsi Monji, was actually, during our breaks, we would actually pull out the copy of the Economic Times and pick up any page and start reading an article, take a piece of pencil and underline the words that we did not understand, because business Economic Times was a business newspaper, and we really didn't have too much understanding of many words that were used in articles that were published. Now, underlining those words, going back and finding out what those words mean, coming back and reading the article again, and kind of then understanding the context of what the author has written, I think makes a lot of sense. Reading as a habit to me, in general, improves your communication skills, and it really doesn't matter what you read, because if tomorrow you pick up a copy of Anupam Kher's autobiography, which I've just finished reading, it's still a book. It is still things that you're putting you're reading right now. I mean, I love reading. One of the good books that I've kind of started reading but not finished is Principles by what's the full name of the author? Was it J. That name will come to me again, but the book title is called The Principles. I read a lot of books by corporate visions. There is a guy called Eric's, again, I can't remember his full name, but he's the managing director of Corporate Visions, and he's written a lot of lovely different books. I am personally an autobiography fan. I tend to read a lot of biographies, and for example, one of the subjects on which I like to read is how businesses are conducted around the world. So, How Google Works, for example, is a great book I've read. Is a lovely book I've read. So yeah, reading is important, guys. What you read really does not matter.
Okay, so last question I want to ask on the behalf of the student, that how to inculcate power of storytelling in your communication skills.
Examples. Bring out examples. Speak
An example?
slowly. The power of storytelling is, the challenge with a lot of people who come to meetings and conversations is that they are not prepared. So preparation is my answer to that question, guys. If you sit down and prepare for a call, if you prepare for a meeting, if you prepare for an internship interview, I'll tell you this, and this is a very honest confession. The
Yeah.
last time I interviewed 61 students between 4 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. inside a university campus for 3 internship, or was it 3 or 5? I don't remember. 3 internship assignments. I was so unhappy with almost 40 of them who just walked in because they saw a notice on the notice board. They were not prepared. They didn't come prepared for the conversation. They had not even taken the effort of going on the Taxsutra website and looking at the business that we do.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
preparation is key. The only way you can become a good storyteller, and I mean, I don't know whether that's the right thing to do in life, but if you want to become a good communicator, forget storytelling, good communicator, please prepare yourself. Do not ignore the fact that if you're jumping on a phone call, getting into a meeting, going and presenting a set of slides to somebody, don't and this is the line I hear from a lot of people nowadays is, I'll swing it. Don't swing it, guys. Prepare for it.
True. I know that you are shortage of the timing, and we have already overcrossed the timings of the session. So on behalf of all the students, on behalf of UBS, on behalf of our entire staff, I thank you to give this valuable time. And I'm sure that our students, they have learned these three sins, and they are not going to repeat this in the future. And that is a, trend, that is the value addition they have got from today's session, and that will reap the fruits in the future. So thank you, Vijay, for taking out the time from your busy schedule and interaction with us.
Thanks,
Thank
Rahul.
you
Thanks a lot,
a lot.
Rahul, and cheers, everybody.
Thank